Welcome, everyone, to episode 7 of In the Hot Seat. For our repeat viewers, thank you for joining us again. For those new to the show, every 2 weeks, we put industry experts or customers into the hot seat for a lively discussion, debate, and even some discourse as we try to humanize the digital experience. All aspects of the customer lifecycle are up for discussion, as well as technologies used throughout each phase of the journey. A tip for users who are using LinkedIn to stream us live: LinkedIn has had some issues in the past with the broadcast cycling back to the beginning. If this happens to you, you can rejoin the podcast on either YouTube or Facebook. You can see the URL below there. This is the final episode of a 7-part series we call Experience the Engagement. This episode focuses on the impact of the employee experience on the customer experience. So in other words, does employee satisfaction and retention impact the quality of the relationship between a business and its customers? So welcome, Jason. And I was just reading an article on HBR last week that did a great job of describing the connection between how well companies empower their employees to be successful at performing their jobs and customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, revenue growth, profit generation, that result is a bit of a chain reaction that begins with the employee's ability to add value for the customer. So which nets out to our companies doing, or what our companies doing to ensure that their employees can execute their specific job successfully.
Yeah, I think the conversation, or at least the question needs to be, are we setting employees up for failure? Spending money, hiring, going through, obviously an expensive hiring process, but then not adequately equipping them on the other side to do the specific job that we're asking them to do, and those job titles become extremely convoluted over time.
Yeah, there's a friend of the show named Larry Augustin who was once the CEO of Sugar CRM for 10 years, I think it was, and then he went on to run application development at AWS, and he coined this term called systems of action as opposed to systems of record. And I think he's really onto something here. A system of action is something that is focused on helping the individual just perform their job as opposed to report on it. And I think it's a really useful concept to think about, because so much investment seems like have been put into systems of record instead of systems of action. And if that's the thing that really drives customer success, the customer experience, we're sort of further in the food chain, earlier in the food chain. We're not investing in that, and that has implications downstream.
Yeah, I mean, I love that concept of the system of action versus system of record. I think we've experienced that and lived that on the sales side. Certainly, the technology industry's developed systems of action for customer service space, maybe a little bit in the field of marketing, but I think there's many job roles that they just don't get to the rubber meets the road in terms of making the job easier. Right. Sales is a great example of that.
Right. Yeah. No, it certainly hasn't gotten any easier, especially with I think virtual selling. You can have more meetings, but that doesn't mean they're better meetings or more effective meetings, or the person's being more successful. So as luck would have it, we have an expert that we'd like to introduce to this topic of conversation.
Well, yes, indeed. And it's my pleasure to announce or introduce Silvana Buljan, who's the Executive Director at Bond Brand Loyalty for the EMEA market, based out of Madrid, where they specialize in bringing customer-centric transformations to organizations, helping them and their people grow together. She has more than 25 years customer experience, domain knowledge, leading a variety of brands, industry-leading brands in various industry sectors. She's been the primary judge for CRM Idol for 7 years. She's also been a mentor at the Customer-Centric Management at PWN for Professional Women's Network from 2012 to 2019, I believe. She was program leader for customer experience with AEC, and has specialisms across customer strategy, centricity, customer experience, CRM. I'm getting a theme there. project management, organizational change, executive training and coaching. So I think she's more than qualified to lead today's discussion and maybe inject some expertise. So Silvana, welcome.
Yes.
Thanks, Jason and Pete. Happy to be here with you guys.
Terrific. Thanks. Well, Silvana, I want to, since the focus of today's conversation is about the linkage or perhaps even a cause-effect relationship between the quality of the employee experience and the quality of the customer experience, the first thing I want to talk about or ask about is upper management, do they buy into this idea? Do they see this connection, or do you have to go out of your way to try to explain these linkages to them?
It's actually so all these topics that seem to be common sense, once you are in a leading position in a company and have made your career through different hierarchical steps, and the higher you get, the more distance you actually create, or the more distance you experience to the real world, both the real world of customers and also the real world of employees. So yes, they see it in terms of they buy in the idea because it's common sense, because no leader, no manager would say, we are not focused on employees. We are a great place to work. We do our voice of employee initiatives. We take on measures. Of course, our employees are important and an asset. But if your mindset thinks that each employee is a cost structure in your profit and loss statement, and you treat employees like that, then you really come to the reality that yes, they buy it, but in terms of how they define it for themselves, not how employees would define it for themselves.
And is that really, is that just for sort of service-oriented companies? Like I'm providing a service to you, or is it all sorts of companies? Does it vary between the two different types?
All sorts of companies. When Jason introduced me, you've seen I have been working so we're not specialized in one industry, but really bringing customer centricity and employee experience across different industries and organizations. And I can tell you, when there are issues, they are always the same. It's the lack of leadership understanding the strategic importance. It's thinking, but we're doing our surveys once a year, and our ENPS is fine, so we're great. But when you go into working with the people and understanding where they stand with their employee experience when it comes to leadership, to feeling recognized, to really understand, I really make a difference in this organization for the result of the organization. So the problems are always the same, and it's really about having two different worlds. Sometimes even when we talk about customer experience, and I remember this first, I think the first time when Bain asked, what do you think as customers, if the brand is customer centric versus the CEOs were 80% would say, of course we're customer centric, versus 8% of customers. The same we see on an organization level when it comes to employee experience, because thinking by doing some hygienics, it's sufficient to motivate employees is just not enough anymore in the world that we are living now. So it's throughout all different industries, all different kinds of services. So we see it everywhere.
Interesting. You talk about the customer survey going out once a year, and that's an indicator. How strong do you think the evidence is in terms of improvements in employee satisfaction, increases the customer satisfaction, loyalty, and company profitability? Because we've had this debate back and forward around. There's lots of surveys and there's lots of metrics out there, and they all often are very conflicting when you read one report versus another.
But it's a leadership mindset. If I'm a leader and I do it to just put a tick on the box, have a value, so I can say we are a great place to work because we received that rating, or our ENPS is that high in terms of employer branding, then I'm happy with just seeing the result and the KPI. If I'm really, truly interested in making my organization continuously better by taking care of my people and really listening to them and then taking on the measures, really or actioning on the data, This is again a different mindset. And of course, you will increase employee motivation when employees see, well, they're listening to my voice, I'm saying something and something is happening. But not just they're listening to my voice just to measure a KPI and then they put it into a report or put it in your annual report for shareholders. It's about taking action on the data you generate. But let me go 2 steps back, and I want to, how did we or I start back then in making this connection between employee and customer experience? So it was really back in the 90s, the big era, the gold rush on CRM implementations. I also was one of the big 4 consultancies, implemented CRM software. And the first contact, or the contact you would usually have with the employees would be in all the requirements definition. So what do we need the system to be able to do so that we can serve our customers better, for instance, or we can do better marketing campaigns, or we can do better data analysis. So you would actually have the sessions with employees when it came to defining the requirements towards a system, and then you would also define the requirements for a process. And then once the system has been developed, you would train them in using them. That was basically the interactions we would have with a broader group of employees. So back then, I remembered when it came to these system or user trainings, once the system would be implemented and needed to be rolled out, employees would ask, so, okay, why are we doing this? What is the higher purpose? What is the strategy behind? Because we always treat employees as, delivering or executing on something that somebody else in the top management has decided to do, or some senior leaders. And then we expect them just to deliver on that or execute on that, and then everything will be fine. And so that's where I first have seen that it doesn't really make sense how we approach these kind of projects if it's not involving employees and much more, because many of them, even in trainings, when you would link a CRM system training to a customer strategy, customer experience training, why are we doing this and why is it important? Why do we need to be a relevant brand for our customers, providing a seamless experience across all these touch points? Many of them would say, what about us? Because we are customers as well. And I'm happy to treat our customers well, but I can tell you, my salary hasn't been raised in 5 years, or we haven't received a bonus in the last 2 years. My boss never does follow up with me, or I had my last performance review 2 years ago, because it's their reality in their day-to-day. And then, and many of them say, well, we should what we do for our customers, we also do for us internally, because we are internal customers, and our leadership needs to understand that, because if we are not motivated, we will not deliver the same thing to the customers. So actually it started for me to see a direct link being in these rational data implementation projects, where employees felt completely disconnected from the overall purpose and the why and the strategy, being involved in the whole design of the strategy, and then also respected and valued as an asset versus a cost factor.
I think those are great points. So that's more than I was hoping for, frankly, on the employee side. Like I hadn't given it that much thought. What I want to circle, what I was focused on though was sort of understanding. You called it the leadership mindset. Like they're taking, seems like such a superficial approach to even thinking about what the connections are between employee satisfaction and improved revenue, improved loyalty, improved customer experience. What's the sort of the state of the art in terms of metrics and measurement of these connections between these different aspects of this value chain that seems to be there, but not totally understood?
So it's really, if we apply the same techniques and KPIs that we usually use for customer experience, where so surveys are not satisfaction surveys anymore. They're really about, so the NPS is top of mind. We go into the complete customer journey with all the touch points. We do transactional surveys. We do much more around gathering information about our customer experience. And if we apply these same techniques and methods to the employee experience, it really changes, because we went into companies because what in the general in the companies, they say employee experience is the responsibility of HR or talent management or human capital, whatever,
Right.
which is wrong, which is absolutely
right.
wrong, because it's your direct leader, your colleagues, your day-to-day is not how many times in your life do you actually treat with HR or people and values or capital or human capital. It's selected points in your journey, but even thinking about employee journeys was something completely new to these HR people who are those who are responsible for voice of employee. And they would see like service on climate or a great place to work or top employer. So that there are different techniques, but none of them goes into the connecting to the different touch points that an employee has in his or her journey with the company.
Right.
So if we apply this, and then we also ask about the importance and the satisfaction, we do key driver analysis, we identify what are the moments of truth in the employee journey, then we do the same technique. And as we work on improving the customer experience, if we apply that, we also give it a more business understanding. And an understanding that we cannot be top in working on the customer journey and have never actually designed or defined our employee journey and measure the touchpoint experience. And it starts with recruiting. It starts with my first day at the job. It goes into my career planning. It also goes into what do I observe when people are being laid off? How is it treated in the organization? So really, we need to look at the complete employee journey from participating in the recruiting process to being in the company and leaving it. So it's the whole journey. As also we have customers who start interacting with us, then buy things or services from us, leave us, come back. The same happens with employees. So applying these techniques gives it a different value in the organization.
Yeah.
And also employee personas. We design customer personas or customer mindsets. We also have different employee personas. We have people who are hungry and want a career. Others who might look more for more work-life balance. Others who want to extend their career with or job rotation. So there are completely different needs in the employee base as well, and we need to identify these needs to ensure that we have the best talent and that we retain the best talent, the same as we do with customers when we attract them and retain them.
Yeah, that leads me into something that Jason was talking about a minute ago, and I mentioned as well this sort of system of action idea. The thing I found when I was reading this article last week, the thing that sort of jumped out at me was and I put this together with both Jason and I have backgrounds in sales, and it seems like in the sales profession, if it isn't somebody else's job, it's your job. And so all of these different sorts of roles get sort of dumped in the lap of the salesperson, and they're the glue that has to make sure that the customer is heard and the voice of the customer makes it back to the company. And if there's service issues, that they're run to ground and so on. And these systems of action, theoretically, if they existed, could be created for each one of these things that gets thrown at a salesperson that they're expected to be good at, and help them do this very complex job. I think that role in particular seems, maybe people haven't invested that much in it because it's so complex, but obviously customer support, it's obvious that you should have all the information at your fingertips and be able to see, okay, so that's a pretty narrow sort of job. But as the job gets sort of more diffuse, to me, the challenge goes through the roof in terms of helping them do their job. How do you think
Absolutely.
about that?
And that's leadership. Again, it comes back to leadership. Because I just read an interesting quote on leadership starts by knowing what your people are doing and how you can support them, what they're doing. And exactly that. And especially in a world where we have more home office, you don't see them in the office anymore. Even you can introduce the OKR, the performance measurement, the balanced scorecard. You can all do all this, but the human connection and feeling as an employee that I have somebody who really supports me in growing my skills and being able to do my job is absolutely fundamental. And I can tell you, we have done the voice of employee surveys in many companies and from different sectors and industries. The hot topics are always, and independent of geography, size of the company, industry they're in, we're always talking about recognition. I feel recognition, not in terms of compensation, really, I feel recognized and valued for what I'm contributing to the organization. It's about receiving continuously feedback that helps me grow my skills, really the feedback management in continuous interest, the genuine, the real, really serious, demonstrated genuine interest in me as a person, and not just as an employee with a job description, with a role, and with an employee number. So these are the three things that show up everywhere. And again,
So
it's
interesting.
Common sense again, right? So we can do correlations and identify the most important touch point, but it goes back to basic psychological needs of someone in the organization.
You know, it's bad when you have to come up with statistics to prove something that's common sense.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I was told there would be no math. Right?
And I think, Silvana, that neatly comes on to my next question for sure. In terms of, that disconnect that leadership often has, and it's not just a technology that's going to sort that, whether it's a system of record or a system of action, although I think systems of action will help significantly going forward. But I think, as we think about how much the world's changed post-pandemic or through pandemic and post-pandemic, are there large differences between the generations that make the difference for how a company should strategize around what it does from an employee experience perspective? For example, do millennials value things differently from previous generations, or does Gen Z, does that even impact job performance now from a Gen Z perspective? Because that seems to be a completely different beast these days. I wonder what your insight into that is.
There are clear differences. And it has to do with our socioeconomic development as well as industry nations. I'm talking about industry nations now. So really the western part of the world and in developed industry, developed countries with high living standards as well. So the Gen Z right now is a generation who has actually seen their parents working all the time. Right?
Yeah,
they were not present.
Jason and I are two of those, right?
Working all the time.
Right.
So there is in childhood and being a teenager, they have seen that, okay, yes, we need this, we want to give you a good college education, but it was all about spending more time at work to generate an income that can help, give them a better education, give them a better life. But what is a better life for a child? A child wants, a child doesn't value if you have a car type A or B or C, right? So
right.
It's something they're very totally different. So this generation now, when they finish their education and start to go to work, they do value much more. That's why they ask questions. How much do I have to work? What are my responsibilities? How much free time is there? Because I want work-life balance, because my friends, I'm still not a parent, but my friends are important for me. And I really want to nurture these relationships. They have a clear view on separating what is private life and business life, that because they have seen their parents working, and sometimes even with the result that was not that satisfactory with their parents either. Because, and we all know that who have been in business for a long time, when the company decides that you're not important or relevant anymore, you're just gone, right? And it doesn't matter how many years you have done a great job and how much time you spent and did all your best through all these years, because gratitude is not present in big corporations anymore. And we see that everywhere. So going back, and this generation has seen that, and they have seen their parents suffer. So they have a completely different understanding of the importance of work in their life. and how and what they are more looking for. And they are looking more for purpose. And I know people are saying, purpose, forget it, because people want to have a great salary and then they're fine. No, that's not true anymore, because it's also a generation who is now who has been raised with the climate change, with all these issues, with the instability of the political systems that we have across the world. They are much better informed than we were when we were at their age, because they have completely different access to information. They know it earlier than we do via TikTok or Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever. So it's a completely different also view of how do I want to make money? What is the role of money in my life, and how to cope that with, yes, my career, but also with my personal life. So we see completely different expectations when it comes to a job, and they say that in the recruiting. In the recruiting meetings, in the interviews, in the job interviews, because now it's different. They decide. It's not us deciding who is going to represent our company. It's them deciding who they want to represent. And with the baby boomers, it's different. Baby boomers are workaholics. It's something they have learned. If you need to be a merit-based culture. You want to have more access to more products. A little bit also, we buy products that we then don't need, things. But again, so it's a completely different understanding of what is important in life, and what kind of status symbols do we also need, or is it my job title? Is it how much money I make in the year? And we also know it's like the theory in the periodical system, the chemistry in chemistry. I think we have all learned how do you call it in English? Is it the marginal value of things? So there is some marginal value. You get higher, and then you don't care anymore. So even for the salary, there's one top. So you're happy once you receive that. But if you then gain more and more, it becomes irrelevant, because you can already cover your most important needs. So that's why culture, purpose, what do I stand for? This generation is completely different in approaching companies and who they want to work for.
So does that explain this notion of quiet quitting? I haven't read that much about it, because I'm one of these people that works all the time, like you were just talking about. So I don't have time for that nonsense. But apparently people are not working very hard some places. And is it tied to a specific generation, or is everybody doing it now? Because we're all fed up.
This is everybody. It's not linked. It's probably more linked to specific job profiles, because you can also we call it bottleneck profiles. Bottleneck profiles are skills and talent that are not very high requested in the labor market and not that much available. So it can be the profile of drivers of delivery services, because it's difficult to find them. Or it can also be data scientists who need to work for data analytics and artificial intelligence set up on everything. So it's depending on the different profile. We would say that it's not that much the generations there. It's more it's the law of the offer and demand, supply and demand. And if there is much more demand than people available, you as an employee have a much better position to negotiate and to you define your standards. For instance, in Germany, we see industries or companies, if they don't offer a 4-day working week, they don't even receive resumes anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's move to Germany, Pete.
Really? It's a very difficult labor market right now, because there are so many jobs that are not being covered, and companies need to really be creative about what they offer these new employees. But at the same time, you need to manage your whole company. You cannot offer people now something completely different. You cannot say, well, 20% of the people can have a 4-day working week for the same salary as a 5-day, and the rest, well, you were a contractor before, right? So it's a really challenging situation in terms of really recruiting all the stuff you need and managing the complete employee experience of your whole company.
I also think that plays quite nicely into some of the customer experiences that you have recently with service providers who clearly have seen that issue with either quiet quitting or just people disappearing or not being engaged, or don't really care to service a disgruntled customer that has a fairly easy thing to solve, but can't get it solved quickly. I wonder how impactful is employee turnover to the metrics like customer sat. So that's coming back to our original concept of the show around the customer loyalty, revenue growth, profitability. Are companies measuring the real financial impact of turnover, or are they mostly just thinking about the cost of turnover as recruiting, hiring, and training?
They are. It's being measured in studies and research, as you also mentioned. HBR. There are some different. I mean, Gallup measures a lot around customer engagement. They can also some links to profit increase and everything, or how much money you actually you lose if you lose talented people at work. So it's based. These metrics are there in terms of studies. I honestly so far have not seen a company that seriously has it as part of their business of their balanced scorecard to really measure these KPIs on a constant basis and link it to revenue and profit and everything. So this is still in very early stages. Very early stages.
I did a study on the real impact of turnover in the enterprise sales space. And when I actually did the math, I was flabbergasted by how much a churning salesperson would cost an organization if they churned in year one. It's just a staggering number. It's the worst thing you can do to your business. I mean, you put yourself on this treadmill where you can't catch up because you're hiring and they're training and they're not producing and then they're leaving, and you've got this space that's allocated and you say that's supposed to be $1.2 million worth of revenue once they're ramped up, and it winds up being $40,000. So it's not even paying the salary that they had when they were here. It's just this nightmare scenario in my mind. And it's back to what Michael Fawcett just said about common sense is not that common. This shouldn't require a lot of math to figure this stuff out, right? But it's striking when you do. So we've got a couple 10 minutes left or so. I'd like to move this discussion toward the direction of large language models, because everything in any discussion has to include large language models now. And so, we were sort of thinking about or talking about how do we improve the employee experience and that linkage to the customer experience. But are companies going to get all sort of shiny object about large language models and just pay all the attention that they would have paid to their employees to figuring out how to get rid of them with large language models? Is that the way this is going, or what? How do you see that topic?
I don't think so. But I don't know what will be happening in 3 years from now. But right now, what I see companies doing is thinking of how to increase productivity for employees by using AI for internal processes. And what you mentioned before, Pete, do I have the right information to serve my customer better? This is something that you definitely can use AI for and actually find the potential in your organization. I do not see that the discussion right now is towards how can we get rid of them and be more productive because we reduce costs. I'm not seeing that right now.
And do you have any thoughts on how companies could use large language models to create sort of new types of value for customers? If this whole sort of value chain gets kicked off with employees are creating value for customers, and that's what drives loyalty, and that's what drives satisfaction, that's what drives revenue and repurchase and referrals and all the good stuff that happens when you create value for the customer. Can we create new sorts of value now that we couldn't before because of AI or large language models in particular, or what?
We can. I wouldn't track it down to the employee level, but really as an organization. And of course, and it starts with asking ourselves, are we still relevant with the products and services that we provide? And how can we increase relevance for our customers by using large language models that help us be better in our product and service development, but also be better in responsiveness to customer needs? I'm really sorry, but somebody is just. I'm not expecting anything, but somebody's just. So I put myself on mute when I'm not talking to not disturb you so much. But it's really about, as a company, it's questioning, challenging. What am I offering? Is it still relevant? And how can I engage employees to find this sweet spot so that we are still relevant for our customers and finding their new products and services and being more efficient?
Staying on that topic just for a second, because I see a lot, and in fact, I think our inspired colleague Esteban was quoting that this morning. But use cases. I wonder if in your experience, Silvana, you're seeing some early use cases. There seems to be an awful lot of conversation and shiny object running towards the AI large language model piece, but very little that actually points to really solid, valuable use cases, either whether it's employee or customer. I wonder if you're starting to see some early use cases that really do make sense for organizations to chase that shiny object.
I've seen it in terms of pricing structures, to really use large language models to also introduce the what you observe from your competition, how the AI helps you to really screen the market better and see if you're still, if via the pricing you can then make adjustments. I've seen this is a use case I can share. And the other one is clearly around customer service, how to give faster, better responses to customers and have an interface to AI and contact centers, chatbots, and so on. So it also helps employees to give a better customer experience because of the efficient use of AI. So there I see it, because, or even if you look at the voice of customer, right? If you have lots of customer comments, the analysis around the comments is much more easier with AI, who then, picks, these are the most relevant that customers have said in the last 5 days. It's much more easier now, and it creates value for employees to give a better customer experience as well. But it's still, I still observe lots of trial and error, because it's new. I mean, ChatGPT, OpenAI is open since November last year, and you know that organizations are slow until you have legal, compliance, IT, all in the same boat to see, yeah, we can do this, we can do that, we can try that. I mean, months go by, right? So it's a great time now to observe and to have these conversations and to observe these use cases being tested.
So one of my follow-up questions on this large language model thing is, and then I'll let it go. Do you think that they have the potential to change the employee experience over the next 2 or 3 years more than the shift to virtual workplace environments did? Or do you think it's not going to be that big an impact?
I see it as a combination for those things that are the hygienics in the employee experience. When it comes to having access to the right information to do my job, of course. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the most important part, again, think of leadership, feedback management, I feel valued. AI will never substitute yet. I mean, will you be happy if the large language model sends you a message, oh, we're so proud of you, you did a great job because you reached an NPS of 90 in the last month? Nobody will feel valued with that.
Now you're getting spammed by the AI. Right.
Exactly. It's the system talking to me. I want my direct boss to say that to me.
Yeah.
In person.
Maybe your direct boss will be the AI, though. That's I don't think that's too far away from coming.
Well, I mean, indirectly it is when it comes to making decisions around what are we going to offer, what not. Of course, we already use it. Right now, we use it to consult it. to inform ourselves. Of course, there are companies who might decide that this is the next thing and needs to be done differently, right? Of course, AI could be your new boss.
Not mine.
Jason plans on quiet quitting from his new AI boss.
Yes, indeed. I'll have an AI bot tell the new boss that I'm quiet quitting. Yes.
Silvana, I think you went on mute there. So I guess we should sum up, I think, with it seems like it's common sense that if we invest in employee satisfaction, that and we use human beings in part to have the relationship aspect of that, and then we have the technological wherewithal to underpin their ability to do their job, then if we develop the metrics a little bit more robustly, we can start to really see the impact of making these changes at this part of the value chain, and then how this has a direct impact on customer loyalty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that sound like a fair synopsis?
I think our connection's got a little bit shaky towards the end there.
I think you're right.
Oh, did we lose her completely?
Could be. I'll make one quick comment, Jason. I was using AI, air quotes, did a transcription of a meeting, and then that AI summarized it for me. And then I went and I compared the summarization quality, if you will, to what the actual script was. And it was using frequency of things being said as the thing to summarize. And when I put my, chief revenue officer hat on, it left off all of the most important parts of the conversation because they weren't said more than these other things that weren't that important.
Well, it's like Silvana said.
Silvana saying you can't replace a human being with AI.
And observe the use cases being played out by some of your competitors and the pitfalls that arise from that, and learn from it before jumping in with both feet. Silvana, we're glad to have you back. We lost your connection there for a second. Can you hear us? I think we're... Oh, looks like she's still muted. That must be the AI bots attacking us for having questioned our
They
sanity.
don't like us talking about them and how useless they are in certain applications. This is
I think we're running up on time, just about. So I would say that Silvana survived the hot seat, with the exception of the AI bot invasion at the end there for the internet connection.
Yes.
But call out to the audience, if you think you've got what it takes to be in the hot seat. We'd love to hear from you, so let us know, and we'll get you on the blower. That's it from In the Hot Seat today. Thanks so much for being with us this week. I'm Jason Lundy.
And I'm Pete Smith. Tune in next time for different faces, different topics, different perspectives as we put somebody else into the hot seat. Thanks.
And thanks to Silvana. Although she's not
very
much.
Thank you.